And hello, how is everyone doing today? Today we're going to be taking a look at how to build a slime farm. This is a fairly simple build, though it requires a great deal of labor, as you have to dig out an entire chunk from the surface almost down to bedrock. And as you can see, I've done just that here. This is a fairly simple farm. I'm going to turn my sounds off because the bottom of this farm is very noisy. But we have 9 spawning platforms here, each of them with golems either directly next to or in between them on both sides. This lures the slimes to bounce off the platforms onto the magma blocks where they die. Sometimes they'll get caught here, but they can't get into the golem, no matter how hard they try, because the space here just isn't big enough. And the golems can knock them out once they see them, and knock them off the little ledge here on here. So you want to make sure that when you build these alcoves, you have 2 layers of fences so that the slimes can't get in there. As for the platforms themselves, they're 9 wide and 16 long, and they're spaced on the top of every 3rd block, starting from Y6 all the way up to Y30. That gives me 9 platforms, which are more than enough for this farm. And I have 16 golems, 8 on each side, to lure the golem or the spawns or the slimes off. And as you can see, I have torches in with the golems to make sure nothing spawns in there with them. Skeletons and zombies, they'll attack. Creepers, for some odd reason, they won't. They're friends with creepers, which is creepy, but that's the way it is. As you can see, we have a floor here of magma blocks, and underneath this floor, we have our collection set up. Wrong. There. We have 16 hopper mine carts on 16 full-length powered rails going all the way across the chunk. And because magma blocks are considered transparent blocks, they're not considered full blocks, mine carts can pick up items through them. So all the slimes that land on top are picked up by the hopper mine carts and deposited in this row of hoppers, which chain all the way around to this dropper. And hello, we have a spawn inside the inside the water spout. Okay, this is fun. Let's see if I can get in here. Up, and I just shot him clear to the top. Boop. Hello. There we go. Okay, that was a bit silly. I'll have to fix that, put a light down here. But the dropper here is powered by this comparator. In between the dropper and this back space back here, we have two observers. This one down here, which is on a sticky piston, which gets pushed up every time something enters this dropper. This comparator will pick that up, power the piston, which will push this observer up. So he's looking at this one, which will cause this one to fire and power the dropper, which will shoot items into this water column. But I do need to add some lights in here. I forgot to do that. When I built this, because I have the mind of a numpty. So we will pop that there like that. That'll prevent spawns in here. And then we'll come in here. And do the same here. Again, that'll prevent spawns in here. These are things I should have done when I built this, but being a numpty, I forgot. Now you don't need to worry about lighting up the area with the mine carts. Between the rails and the mine carts, nothing can spawn in that space. So you don't have to worry about spiders or things like that. And the hoppers, the way I have them chained here is a bit inefficient, but I was in a hurry and I wasn't thinking. But you can use a single row of hoppers instead of the 2 rows that I have here, and I will show you how to do that later. But this is a fairly simple farm. It's almost lossless, and I do mean almost. You will have things like this with slime balls getting caught on some of these rails from time to time, but the rates, if you can light up all the caves around your chunk for 180 blocks, I believe it, or 120 blocks in all directions around your slime chunk, will increase the rates dramatically. And then all your slime balls will shoot up through here and into your collection system. And as you'll see here, I have my little water flow looping back around on itself. I recommend this for any storage system, whether it's attached to a farm or just the storage system in your base, simply because this allows time for the hoppers to pick the items up, because if it misses it the first time, the item will then go all the way back around, loop back in, and then the hopper can pick it up a second time on the second or third pass. You have up to 5 minutes for an item entity to loop around like this before it will despawn, and that should be more than enough time for any storage system to pick an item up. As far as the storage systems go, this over here is sort of the standard basic storage system. You've got a series of chests that go up in sort of a snaking pattern with the hoppers connecting them on the sides and the bottoms, so that when anything goes into the top chest, it automatically filters down into the bottom and uses a basic, fairly standard item filter. This was designed by Impulse SV, I believe. It's a very simple, one wide, tileable. As you can see here, I have all these different sorters connected to each other as far as this redstone, and they are not interfering with each other, and they cannot, because they don't produce enough power to power the redstone beside them, so they don't affect each other at all. And the way this works is in here we have 45 items. Once more than the 45 go in here, this comparator will put out a redstone signal of 3, which will repeat into this, or go into this repeater and unlock or turn off this redstone torch, which will unlock this hopper, which will allow that item to go from here down to here and into the chests. Then the power system up here will drop from 3 back to 2. This torch comes back on, locking this hopper, keeping the 45 items you see here into this hopper, so only gold ore will go in here, because only gold ore can come in here. You can use items like I've got here for your filter items, or you can take an item, 4 items, and name them, and then place the item you want going into that chest there. But this is a fairly standard sorting system. Very efficient, very space friendly. As I said, it's 1 wide. You can do just 1 of these, or you can do up to 8 in a stretch. I prefer to keeping it at 7 so that my water flow system can arrange around it nicely, as water only flows 8 blocks. So by using 7, that leaves me an 1/8 for a water source to use freely as a push source for the water system. Again, you can see I've got it looping around here back to the water elevator, bringing items up in. And I have a fairly simple inputs system, much like what we have for the slime farm right here, though this one's much faster. And that's because of this setup here. You have 2 chests, but one of them's a trapped chest. That allows you to take items and put in it without it immediately filtering down into the dropper until the chest is closed. That gives you enough time to make sure that what you're putting in there is what you want going in, so that you don't have, any accidentals in case you're using this for garbage disposal, dropping things into lava. But once you close it, it powers this piston, which pushes this observer over facing this one, which sends a redstone signal into the dropper. And because we have 2 hoppers flowing into the dropper, the items will come out at double speed. And as we can see, they're flowing around here, being picked up by the sorter system. And I've also got another line here going off into a light. That's because, as I said earlier, that with the sound up, this is very loud. And I forgot a repeater. That way you can be out of the audio range of the dropper and the pistons, and when the light goes off, you know that the items have emptied out of the dropper and that your sorting system is picking everything up. Now here's the same version of what we're using in the farm, though I've got a light here to let you know that it's working. This again is slower because it'll only fire while the 2 are looking at each other. But this is the same system that's being used on the slime farm. And as we can see, it's dropping things down into lava. but you can use this to launch things into a sorting system or however you'd like. We've got another version of the system over here that's using a larger firing clock. As you can see, this is a comparator going into a couple repeaters and some redstone dust. And then we have a signal that's going up this glass tower into this system, powering this light. So that, again, you could be out of audio range so that you don't hear the constant clicking of the dropper. And when it goes out, you know it's finished. Now this glass tower is sort of a unique thing. Redstone will only travel up between transparent blocks. You know, things like magma blocks, soul sand, or glass. And as you can see, we can put the glass or the redstone dust on the glass, and it is making a line going straight up until it reaches this point and it goes over into this repeater, which is then powering this block, powering this repeater, powering this repeater, powering this block, powering this redstone, all the way back to this repeater powering this light. And this little chain right here is sort of required to extend the signal enough so that it becomes constant by this point. Because if it's still flashing, the light will flash. And we want a constant signal going through here. And we'll demonstrate that real quick. I do have this. And I put that in the wrong slot. Pop that down there. Get rid of that. But we can see the redstone flashing all the way up through here. Coming up here, and when it reaches this, it's a constant signal. So that the redstone here is constantly powered. And then once everything's finished down below, the power will cut off, and then this light will fade as the power in this circuit fades out. And this is a fairly large dropper system. As we can see here, it's 4 blocks long, 3 blocks wide, 1 block high, and it's functional. I use it myself on some designs, but again, it's large. It takes up a lot of space. Though again, with the redstone here, as the way this works is the power is traveling from the comparator around into this block through this redstone dust and this repeater, and then coming back through this block into this block, powering this redstone dust up through here, and then this redstone dust is powering the dropper. But by placing this glass tower here, we're diverting the power up to a light so that it's also powering that while it's functional, and only while it's functional. And we have this running into a chest down here. You can see where I've been testing things. But that's the basics of, you know, any storage system. As for our slime farm, this is fairly simple to design. As I said, I've got these 9 platforms with golems on each side, and as you can see, they're in 3 deep holes with 6 fences in front of them. This prevents the slime from being able to get to them and do them any damage. Though the large slimes can land on here, and they will try to continue to get to the golems, but the golems will eventually see them and hit them, knocking them off onto the magma blocks, and causing their demise. Now, as you see, I have all these platforms lit up, and that's because slimes will spawn in any light level, but we want to keep these platforms free of anything else: zombies, creepers, skeletons, spiders. So we want to keep the light levels as high as possible. So we've got all these platforms lit up. We've also got lights inside each of the rooms with the golems to make sure nothing spawns inside here. And then we have an AFK box at the center of the chunk, 23 blocks away from the topmost platform, which gives all the platforms underneath it enough distance so everything that can spawn will spawn. Now, as far as construction, the most complex part is down here at the bottom, where the magma blocks and all the mine carts are. And I will show you how to do that. You will need 4 stacks of magma blocks. You're going to need two stacks and a bit of powered rails. You're going to need 15 or so hoppers, 2 observers, a dropper, comparator. I do recommend having some fire potions on you, a piston, some redstone blocks, some mine carts. You'll need some packed ice, and that's everything you'll need basically for the bottom layer of this farm. Now I'm going to build this up here so you can see how it's done fairly simply. First we start with the dropper. We've got our area all dug out, and we have open sky access. You want to be able to look up in your farm and see open sky. So if your slime chunk's underwater, you will need to drain all the water that is above it. So it's preferable to find a slime chunk that is on land somewhere. But as far as building this, we will need a couple of things. Dropper, both observers, this, these. Alright, now we've got our chunk, we've got sky access, and we've got 2 layers of stone between us and bedrock. That's important because we're going to have to do a little bit of digging to lay this all in. If you've dug all the way down to bedrock, put in 2 layers of stone above it. That way you have room for everything. Now we're going to need to dig out a little area here that will be for our water system and our dropper. So we're going to put our dropper here. Whoop, wrong way. Here. So you can see the face. This is the direction the items are going to flow. In front of the dropper, place a piece of packed ice. And I forgot the signs. You're going to need 2 signs. One directly above the ice, and then one on the next block up. And that'll give your items enough clearance to shoot out of this, hit this water stream, and come straight up without catching on a block. Now on this block, where did I put it? I forgot it again. We need to put a piece of soul sand. And like I said, as long as these 2 blocks are open air, you won't have to worry about things getting caught here. which is something that can happen. If there's a block in this space, items can come out and they'll instantly start to curve up from the way this fires. And sometimes they'll get caught on the edge of this block here where it hits the water. This prevents that, and items will just go straight up. Then you want to fill the column from the bottom of your, from this block here all the way up to ground level with water sources. You can do that manually with a bucket, or you can do a water source at the top and then drop it down and use kelp to fill it up, or fill it full of water sources. Because as kelp grows, it'll turn the block into a water source. Or you can fill the entire thing with ice and break those, and each one of those will become a water source. But that's the way it has to work. Every block between the soul sand and the surface has to be a water source, or the bubble column won't work. Now, next to the dropper, facing into it, you want a comparator, and beside the comparator, or behind the comparator, you want a sticky piston, on top of the sticky piston you want an observer looking at the comparator. On top of that observer, place a temporary block. Then place another observer looking into that block. And then break it. Remove your temporary block. That way, anytime any item goes into this dropper, it'll cause this comparator to power the piston, which will shoot up, causing these two observers to look at each other, which will fire this observer, which will power the dropper long enough to shoot out the item that's in it. When no more items detected in here, this will come back down, this will stop firing, this will stop working. And it'll continue in that cycle basically forever, as long as the farm is functional. Now from here, you want to put in 16 hoppers. Well, those are the wrong things. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 16. Make sure that each hopper is facing into the one in front of it, so they all chain properly. And you want to make sure that there is a solid block, preferably stone or andesite or something, directly behind it to act as a block that can be powered, because it'll be necessary for the return to make the carts bounce back and forth. Now we can place our tracks. Make sure that on top of the hoppers you place a track, shift and then place your track down, then come down 16 blocks. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16. And there should be another solid stone here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we need to do that for the entire build. You'll notice sometimes these tracks will connect to each other like this. This is a common problem with placing tracks side by side. Just keep placing them until they place straight. Sometimes you've got to place one out of order in order to keep them straight. But once you get the whole thing set up, then we can show you how to power them. And I know I've still got the game sounds off because this is about to get very loud. To be quite honest, I've already recorded this once and had to scrap the entire recording because you couldn't hear me over the game sounds of all the mine carts that were running. So, the perils of learning how to YouTube. And I'm sorry for the clicking sound of my mouse. I've just gotten a new microphone and it is quite sensitive. Had to turn off my air conditioner and my fan while I'm recording this. But that isn't too much of an issue at the moment. It's been a fairly cool day. And this is the last track. Now, we have a visitor. And he's going to get in the way. You see, I told you he was going to get in the way. Bad merchant. Bad. Bad. Bad llama. Bad llama. I don't care if you're a breakdancing llama. I don't want you here. No one saw anything. Now, back to where we were. We have our tracks down, but they're all unpowered. So, count to 8 on your tracks. And we are going to rip out and replace this entire section with redstone blocks. Because this is the easiest way to power this system without having to worry about levers or redstone torches or however else. It'll power the entire stretch both ways as long as you're 8 blocks down. That way it's in the center of the entire thing, it's powering both sides. Now that we've got these in, comes basically the hard part. Put our carts in and they'll immediately start up. Make sure you start them on the end. Otherwise, they won't start moving. They have to be next to this solid block. Now your carts are all going to stay moving, and since they're on a complete set of powered rails, they will never stop. Because of the way we're designing this, because of the rails and the carts, spiders will never be able to spawn in this space, so these carts will never be stopped unless something on your world stops it. So unloading the chunk should not stop these carts as they're on powered rails. The only thing that might stop them is if you build this on a server and there's a server hiccup. There are some possibilities it might stop the carts. That would be the only problem you should have with this. Now, here's where things do get difficult. Having to place these magma blocks, because they have to be placed after the carts are in place. So you're going to want to build these, put one of these up on your last cart, set it off, plop your block down, and then get on top of it. And make sure you're shifting to prevent the blocks from hurting you. And then start placing blocks. And do this to the entire chunk. You want to cover every single one of these blocks with magma blocks. Like I said, they're considered non-solid blocks or transparent blocks. So mine carts with hoppers in them can pick up items through them. And since they're running over static hoppers, anything they pick up will be dropped into those hoppers, then into the dropper, and then into your water elevator up to your storage system. And you can do that for the entire wall. And as I said, you can place anything that gets on top of here, your slime balls, whatever. They're going to get picked up by the hoppers, and then they'll be thrown out of this dropper up into your water stream and then up into your storage. And there we go. And that's basically the largest mechanic of the farm. And there it is. And as you can see, slime just keeps rolling in. This was empty when I started. When I started recording, I emptied out this storage completely. So in just that time, we've gotten a full double chest and a bit. But then again, like I said, this is a creative world. There are no caves here for me to worry about lighting up. So this farm is getting maximum spawn rates. But if you put in the work and you actually light up all the caves in your area, you should get something similar. So between a chest and a double chest, every half hour to hour or so should not be uncommon. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's been our slime farm and our storage tutorial. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Any suggestions or requests for any future tutorials, I'll take. And with that, I'll see you all next time.